duality. Duality is when a person looks at something and says, which one is the good one? Yeah. So he sees something and he looks at the perspectives and he just chooses one that he likes and rejects the rest. Lakota Star Knowledge says that there's at least 3 perspectives to everything. A dualistic person looks at these 3, chooses one, and rejects the other 2. And he sees the situation in only 2 parts. Hence the word dual. In duality, dualism. So what he's done is he's accepted only 1/3 of it. The other 2/3 he counts as one piece and just rejects it, but it's still 2/3. It's not 1/2, it's 2/3. In his mind, he sees it as 1/2, but it's not. It's 2/3. So you see, he only accepts 33% of reality. That includes emotions. He only accepts 1/3 of it. That means 2/3 of all the experiences of his life. 2/3 of the emotions of all those experiences are trapped inside of him. And the more he lives this way, the more closed-minded he becomes, and the less peace he has. He's got chaos inside of him. He doesn't know himself. So when he meets something or someone for the first time, he judges it right away. If he likes it, he says it's good. If he doesn't, he says it's bad, it's evil, must destroy it, must change it. He must control it, he must oppress it. That's what duality brings. Oppression and victimization. Yeah? It brings oppressors. It makes people into oppressors and or victims. And this is where, they try to just do things that they like. So in other words, when they run into difficulties, they reject it, they deny it, they hide from it, they say it doesn't exist. And then they say it's the enemy. So they stay away from it. And they do whatever they can to stay away from it. Even to the point of developing belief systems, like religion, that's man-made, to dwell in one emotion. And all that is rejecting at least 67% of reality. Yeah? So look at all that emotion that gets trapped inside of them. And because of that, they cannot develop emotionally. Because all those emotions are trapped inside of them. They're denying they're there. But they are. They've trapped themselves. And before you can develop spiritually, you have to develop emotionally. They go hand in hand. So if a person is living this way, he's not developing emotionally, which means he's not developing spiritually. I'll say that one more time, just to make sure. When a person lives this dualistic way, they are not developing emotionally, which means they cannot develop spiritually either. And this is going to affect them mentally. It's going to make them mentally ill in many cases. In most cases, it's just going to kind of like close their minds. And then they get physically sick. And this is where your psychosomatic illnesses come from. This is how they develop. Your body will get physically sick. Do you see? The body, the mind, the emotions, and the soul are all connected. So if you neglect one part, eventually the other 3 parts are going to go down too. When you focus on only one part, again, the other 3 are going to suffer because they're being neglected. Yeah? Again, if you only focus on one thing, the other parts are going to get neglected and you still get sick. So dualistic people, they'll create a belief system where happiness, eternal happiness, is the main goal. See? To just stay in one emotion. Remember what I said earlier, emotions are really, they're just part of an experience. They're part of a learning experience. If you're healthy and you're making the best of it, emotions will leave and bring you peace, knowledge, and wisdom. But dualistic people, they force a certain emotion to stay. And when they do that, they don't develop. They try to hide from fear, pain, sadness, anger. They try to hide from those and say those are bad things to feel. Do this and you'll be happy all the time. That's what they promise their people. That's how they get people to join them, because it's nice to be happy. Feels good. They say if you follow our way, you'll be happy forever. That's addiction. And this does not allow you to develop emotionally, because you're rejecting other emotions. And to do that, those emotions are not going away. They're staying inside your body until you deal with them. And dualistic people don't. They try to deny it. They cover it. They say it doesn't exist. They hide from it. They call it bad. And they get sick from it. That is addiction. So anything they disagree with, they say it's wrong. They say it's bad. They say it's evil. It must be destroyed. If it will not join us, that means it's against us. Therefore, it must be destroyed. Can you imagine all the religions, including Christianity, that are built upon this very ideology? Even governments are built on this. This is basically the policy America has against American Indians. So that's where religion comes into play. That's where racism comes into play. Ethnocentrism, paternalism, dogma. Ethnocentrism, for those of you that don't know, is when people judge other cultures based on their own, which means that they think their own culture is better than others. Paternalism is when people say, well, if you just do it my way, everything will go right because, I'm smarter than you and I know more than you, so just do it my way and it'll all go right. That's paternalism. That's saying that just because people disagree with you that they must be dumb. That's paternalism. And we all know what racism is. We all know what religion is. Dogma, which actually is a part of religion, is saying that our way is the only way. And if you try to do it another way, you are evil. You're from the devil. You believe in the devil. See, they created these concepts of heaven and hell and God and Satan to control others, to oppress others who disagree with them. And using emotion as part of that by saying, don't you miss your relatives who died? Well, you can be with them again if you join us, because our God says that after we die, we go to a place of eternal happiness. See, that's a promise that has no foundation, but it appeals to emotion. It goes for people who are very weak, people who are going through difficult time. It attacks them and says, come with us. We love you. We accept you for who you are. And be with us and you'll find family. We'll be your family. And lonely people, this is exactly what they desire. So they jump for it. And next thing you know, They're part of a religion, they're part of a cult, or they're a terrorist, or whatever. They all function on the same frequency. Yeah? And then their religion might say, only eat these things and that'll help you to, live a good life. Yeah? Only drink these things. And then, depending on what religion it is, they congregate frequently, whether it's daily or weekly, to have thoughts ingrained into them by a speaker. In other words, these people like this are looking for everything, to fill a hole inside of them. They're looking for it out there. Lakota Star Knowledge says that's no foundation. The foundation is within you, because reality begins within. So if you have a hole in your life, it's not going to be filled from something out there. You have to rebuild it from within you. And you don't have to do it alone. Other healthy people can guide you. They can they can listen to you. They might see things you don't see. They can guide you to it. But you're the one doing the work, because it's your hole and you have to fill it. But they can guide you to doing that. That's how you build your foundation. This is how you battle with loneliness, brokenheartedness. You have to heal from within, because reality begins within. But what duality does, it says, oh, we have the cure. Yeah? So they promise you these things, and then they start to work on your mind. They deprive you of things that you need. They say, don't eat this, don't drink that. Yeah? They say, hey, that way of thinking, that's evil. That's not the same thing we believe, so that means it comes from someplace evil. And the ceremonies that those people are doing, that conflicts with ours, so that means their ceremonies come from the devil. And the more they say this, the more it works on you. And they keep promising you happiness if you follow them. So they're depriving you of things to get your mind to become weak. Yeah, they're depriving you of emotional development. That automatically deprives you of spiritual development. They're telling you, only eat this, only eat that. So they're depriving you of healthy foods that you need. That weakens your mind. This is what happened to us on reservations. Yeah? This is the method that cult leaders, religions, terrorist organizations, this is the method they use on their new recruits to control them, to brainwash them. In the late 1800s and early 1900s was the beginning of the reservation time in America and the reserve time in Canada. And this is what happened to us. And these reservations were like prison camps. And we couldn't leave. We were not allowed to have weapons, so that meant we couldn't hunt. We were deprived of the foods that made us physically strong. We were told not to speak our language and not to do our ceremonies. Then the churches came to the reservations. Remember, we can't leave them. They're like prisons. And the churches, the priests, they learned our stories. They even learned our languages. And they said that our belief systems conflict with the Bible. Therefore, our belief systems come from Satan. By this time, because we're deprived of things that our bodies need, we're hurting emotionally and spiritually, we became weak-minded and began to accept what these priests were saying. This is, like I said, this is the same method that cults and terrorists use on their new recruits. So the Indians in the early 1900s became strong Christians. They threw down their Indian ways, and they became Christian. There were some who refused. They were sent to a mental asylum in Canton, South Dakota, to die. The priest told the government agents in charge of the reservation, they said that these Indians that don't want to go to church, they're crazy. So the Indian agent, who's a white guy from Washington D.C., who's sent there to run the reservation, since we couldn't speak English, he would then send these radical Indians to this mental institution. There was just one in America. It served all Indians in America. So any Indian who refused to become a Christian, or if there were holy men or holy women, medicine men, medicine women, they were sent there too. This way, the other Indians on the reservation have no one to go to for their medicinal needs or spiritual needs. So all the healers were sent to this mental institution to die. The priest said that their work is from the devil, so we need to get rid of them. We cannot have them influencing the people away from their God. That's a man-made concept, as I said earlier. Yeah. So that's how it was at the beginning of the reservation time period. And then children born from that time were born into strong Christian households. We're talking 1930s now. Those are the elders of today. They are not the connection to the ancient past. They're the connection to the time when reservations were extremely dualistic. In other words, Christian. Then the government set up these boarding schools to take children hundreds of miles away from their families, and all they faced was abuse. They were murdered, they were tortured, they were humiliated, intimidated daily by the teachers and any adult people at these schools. They were molested, they were raped. There's a lot of unmarked graves around these schools. All they saw was abuse. They couldn't even talk about home. They were tortured if they were. So those that made it out, they really didn't survive. Yeah, they made it out, but they did not survive because they still have post-traumatic stress disorder. And they never learned the proper parenting skills because they were told that their parents died. So they stayed at these schools all year round. So when they grow up and have children, they don't know how to be healthy parents because they never received healthy parenting themselves. They tried their best. But what resulted was dualistic children. And they didn't want their children to go through what they went through, so they didn't teach them their language, they didn't teach them their culture or stories. And if there were stories, they dualized them. They put in the element of good and evil. But that's not the original story. That's the Christian tainted version of the story, of what they told to their children. So here we are, several generations later, and this is the reason why most Indians don't know Lakota Star knowledge. They don't know their language. All they know is dualistic versions of it, but they don't know the true form. And they believe in good versus evil. They oppress anybody they disagree with. This is something they learned from the boarding schools. This is a legacy of the boarding schools. Yeah? So that's how the situation is today on reservations. And We're always attacking each other. We're always putting each other down. People don't even support one another unless it's their own relative. But even then, families go against each other. Yeah, we're not like our ancestors today. We're absolutely not like our ancestors. So much knowledge is still here, but most don't want to hear it because they're Christian. Remember what I said? The priests in the early 1900s said that our stories conflict with the Bible, therefore that means they come from Satan. So what I say on this show, most Indians today disagree with. But that's okay. It has to be said. Because there might be one Indian who will believe it. And that's worth it to me. Yeah? There were in the early 1900s, there were Indians who still lived the Lakota Star Knowledge way on the inside. But they didn't want to get sent to that mental hospital, that mental asylum. Remember, mental asylums in the 1900s are cruel places all over the world. They did really wicked things to people. Sometimes they put people in rooms and they didn't even clean them. They didn't even clean their bathrooms. So it's just like a floor, with about 12 inches high, full of shit all over the floor. Shit and pee, and if the person wasn't crazy then, it made him crazy. So a lot of people, they went crazy in these institutions. In this institution, I mean. Or I could say all of them, all over the world, because they basically did the same thing. They did cruel experiments to people like that. Yeah. So some Indians, they still live the Lakota Star Knowledge way, but inside of themselves. But they didn't want to go. They didn't want to get labeled as a radical, so they pretended. On the outside of themselves, they put on the mask of Christianity, but they didn't believe it. They went to church every Sunday, sat down, stood up, kneeled down, Hail Mother of Mary, this, and may the Lord be with you, that, and all that kind of thing, and making the Stations of the Cross, getting up and going out and just waiting to get home to say, whew, got that part done. Thanks to people like that, the Star Knowledge stayed and was handed to people like me. Yeah? So like I said, because of the story that I just explained to you, which is a true story, most Lakota people will not agree with what I say. And that's okay with me. Because one might. And as I said before, that's worth it to me. That means it continues. Yeah, this is the secrets of the universe. This is the foundation to the universe, which is also the foundation to you. It's about a way to live with yourself, with each other, with everything. And to learn from when things go rugged, because they will. Things will go rugged from time to time. That's just the way nature is. So that's why it's important to live, and to learn from those difficult times so that you continue to live and continue to love. So learning is crucial. We're always learning in our lives. That's crucial to our existence. It's crucial to our peace. And this is how we live as the ancestors, as Ikche Oyate, as human beings, not as Lakota, not as German, not as Japanese, not as African, but as humans. Because we have that in common. That is our inheritance from our ancestors. And when we live this way, this is what we will pass on to our descendants. So they can look back at us and say, thank you. for keeping this for us, so they can have peace too. Do you see what I mean? So living in the present moment shows appreciation to the ancestors and gives promise to the descendants. That's beautiful. The circle of life. Yeah? So that's the foundation to this show. I'm representing the ancestors. I'm representing the ancestral voice, which is, it's about living in peace. It's about living. It's about love. Yeah? It's about learning. And it's focusing on what's inside of you.